Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Correa fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, your home for all the latest Dodgers news, updates, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matt Moreno. We didn't have a lot of these live shows planned, but it feels like things are starting to move around the league, Matt. I know people are going to be frustrated because the Dodgers are not one of those teams that have been active, but a lot of things are going on. So let me just start. Matt, how are you? How are you handling the whirlwind of the winter meetings so far?
I'm doing great, honestly. It's been fun. I think, for the winter meetings to kind of have the level of activity that it did is great, because obviously, with the lockout and then the COVID year, like, we missed this, and it's also just good for baseball in general, right? I mean, the Dodgers, I know we'll get into it, and there's some frustration brewing there, but the sport in general, like, players are signing these lucrative contracts, pitchers are really cashing in, it seems, and I think it's just good for the sport.
Yeah. Kenley Jansen, $16 million a year for 2 years. I mean, I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see that coming. And going to the AL East, that's going to be interesting for him. I'll be watching next season to see how he kind of fares. And I'll be rooting for him, obviously, but I have my concerns for Kenley.
Yeah, I mean, good. I'm happy for Red Sox fans. Their small market team that couldn't afford Mookie Betts found a few pennies in the couch cushions and in order to pay him and Chris Martin about $25 million a year. So, well, let's start, Matt, with the headline, and it's what everybody's talking about. It's the Carlos Correa report that came from Ken Rosenthal today. This is something that many of us had guessed. We had wondered aloud whether this would be the case. Ken Rosenthal saying the Dodgers are not pursuing Carlos Correa, essentially due to fear of fan pushback along the lines of it. We know how unpopular Correa is as a person. I guess you could say as a player among Dodgers fans. There was questions, would they pursue him? Would they go after him? Ken Rosenthal, one of the most respected voices in the baseball media, saying they're not going to because of this. He's a guy that I think has credibility. He should be believed if he says something like this. What's your take? I mean, are you surprised that the Dodgers would actually go this route?
I was a little surprised because, honestly, I think the way they could have gone instead was just saying, they're not sure how the clubhouse would accept Carlos Correa. And I mean, even though at this point, current holdovers from that 2017 Dodgers team are down to Austin Barnes, Clayton Kershaw, and Chris Taylor. If Justin Turner is re-signed, then that's another one. And like we've discussed in the past, like, Correa's kind of defiant stance and a lot of his, comments were aimed at Cody Bellinger, who of course is no longer with the team now that he's signed with the Cubs. But I feel like that would have been a little bit more believable than saying we're not sure how the fans are going to take it, because, well, I don't think the Dodgers are in the business of upsetting the fan base by any means, and they have voiced, from Stan Kasten to Andrew Friedman to Dave Roberts to the players, they've consistently voiced their appreciation for how much support they get from fans. I personally read this as it's more of like an excuse and the shield that they're hiding behind because of the taboo competitive balance tax that I am firmly convinced that they don't want to go past.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But before we get to the competitive balance tax, some people in the chat are mentioning, hey, how can the Dodgers say this after they went out a couple years ago and signed a guy like Trevor Bauer that had concerns? But I actually think that comment is making a connection between two things where there is a natural connection. I wonder if the pushback that the Dodgers got because of the Bauer signing, because of the lack of either research into who Bauer was and what type of person he was, or the lack of care of it, I wonder if they are now sort of swinging the complete opposite way here, Matt, and saying, look, we went down the Bauer road, we stuck our necks out there, we took a chance on a guy that we thought was a really good baseball player that came with a ton of baggage, and it all completely blew up in our face. Is it possible that that's actually the reason that they would have the stance that Rosenthal says they have?
That's a good point. And I think so. And that's certainly fair. And if that is the case, then, I would sit here and say, look, I was wrong. And, the Dodgers they did learn from their mistakes. And I call it a mistake because, like I said, I've been on record as somebody who was saying at the time of signing Trevor Bauer, just his social media activity and the stuff that had already been out, I didn't think it was worth it. And I was frankly surprised that the Dodgers were going to stick themselves out that way. And of course, it has unfortunately become what it's become. So if they are going to learn from that decision and maybe how fans did sort of sour on them in the front office a little bit, then that's fair. I just to this point, as we sit here right now, I'm just skeptical of that, like
Yeah.
truly being the reason.
Yeah, and I guess the only reason I push back against this being entirely about the competitive balance, thresholds and taxes and whatever, is because there's plenty of other guys they could sign. Like they could easily go sign Bogarts. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that gives them an excuse to not sign Correa, but then they'd have to come up with all sorts of excuses for why they're not doing this and that and this and that. And so we both still think there's about $40 million the Dodgers are going to spend. I think the expectation is they will get right up into the threshold. At least that's where we were at last night. And so signing Correa wouldn't put them over that threshold by himself. Now, maybe they're prioritizing other positions, but I just think guys like Bogarts, guys like Dansby Swanson, who are still out there, are going to cost them a bunch of money. Maybe not quite as much as Correa, but not enough to say, oh, we can't sign Correa, but we can sign Bogarts.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess, yeah, I don't know. It could go. I could see that logic playing out, and I mean, it also depends on, like we've discussed. Maybe Correa doesn't end up getting the long-term contract that Trey obviously got. I mean, I don't think any other shortstop's frankly going to get like 10 or 11 years. And that could end up being a factor. And frankly, I mean, if we want to, the Trevor Bauer thing, like how that suspension and appeal unfolds, like I'm sure the Dodgers have to kind of factor in that potential salary if he wins his appeal, and then they come back and they have to pay a certain amount. Yeah, I mean, it in fairness, it is a complicated process, and I think I still am convinced that they're not going to even sign Bogarts anyway. And if they do, then we can maybe take them for this report and say, yeah, they genuinely did want to respect the fans. And although I will say, and we've discussed this, it does seem like fans' opinion is a little bit split. And even in the comments tonight, like we're seeing, yes, sign Correa, he's worth it. Enough is enough. Like, do you want to win this and that? And so I think that's interesting to see too, because it's a tough, I think it's closer to 50-50 than it ever has been.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. And look, we've talked about Correa, the player. Like, if we're just talking strictly on the field, he would make the Dodgers better if he was on this team. My argument all along has been, is there an option that makes you better, but without some of the baggage that Correa brings with you? And I would say the answer to that question is yes. That's why I've long been on board the Xander Bogaerts train. But I also was saying on Twitter today, like, I think if it's not Bogarts and it's not Correa, I'm not sold on Dansby Swanson. I think he's fine. But, like, if Dansby Swanson's going to cost me $23 to $25 million a year, I'm not sure I'm excited about that. Is he better than Gavin Lux at shortstop? Yeah. Is he $20 million better than Gavin Lux at shortstop? I would say no. Which brings me on the Correa piece real quick before we move on. The Gavin Lux piece to this. I've been saying for the last couple of months, hey, don't rule it out. Gavin Lux playing shortstop. And Andrew Friedman has openly said, we think he can play there. Now, they've also sort of walked back those comments and said, hey, that's our shortstop for now. We'll see. There's lots of guys out there. Where are you at on Gavin Lux? Like, if the season starts and Gavin Lux is the shortstop, will that be an utter failure by the Dodgers front office to upgrade that position in your estimation? Or do you think that's a justifiable, defensible move to give Gavin Lux a shot at short?
It would be defensible so long as they shore up other pieces of the team. Like if they decide to not sign, one of the premier shortstops who are still available, but maybe they add a quality outfielder, which I mean, I guess at this, like, it would be Brandon. Like, there aren't many of them, right? So maybe Brandon Nimo, but I'm not sure if that really moves the needle a whole lot for me. So I mean, and even frankly, starting pitcher, like I guess if they sign Carlos Rodon type thing, or maybe Senga, he's a popular name that the Dodgers were mentioned as being interested in, but it seems like more recently other teams are involved, then perhaps. But if it's, like I said, just kind of a depth guy here, a depth guy there, and oh, by the way, we've moved Gavin Lux to shortstop, like I don't see that as being a good approach.
Yeah, the amount of pressure that would be on Gavin Lux's shoulders to perform, and every mistake would be under the microscope. And, this is a young guy still that we've seen kind of how well he's taken the pressure. At times has been great, but at other times he's been a young guy with a lot of pressure, a former top prospect, and can he perform there? And so we'll see. I'm with you. Like, if Gavin Lux is a shortstop, but somehow the Dodgers have added, some incredible value as a starting pitcher and as in an outfielder, then maybe you can get by with it. But if it's, James Outman, Chris Taylor, Trace Thompson in left field and center field, and it's Ryan Pepiot as your number 5 starter and Gavin Lux as your shortstop, which is how things stand today, then I think there would rightfully be some questions that they would want to answer. Second piece of news today, just briefly that we can touch on, Seth Lugo, a name that I know will just inspire generations of Dodger fans to give Andrew Friedman credit and a break. The Dodgers connected to him, a relief pitcher historically, but the reports are that the Dodgers are among teams looking to move him into the starting rotation. We just talked about what happens if Gavin Lux is a shortstop. If Gavin Lux is a shortstop so that the Dodgers can go sign Seth Lugo, I'm not sure that's what people are hoping for.
Yeah, the interest didn't surprise me, but then when I read that it's with the intention to potentially move him into the starting rotation, that's what caught me off guard. And as I was putting together our article on it, I mean, Lugo hasn't started regularly, I think, since like 2017 or 2018. He made some starts in 2020, but it was a shortened season. I think it was only 6 starts out of like 17 appearances overall. That would definitely be a curious approach. I think it's fine if you want to sign him and say like he's a potential swingman, but I think if you were to sign him and fully commit to putting him in the starting rotation, I just think that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, he'll be 33. I mean, looking over his numbers, 2019, he was an elite reliever. 2.7 ERA, 2.43 expected ERA. I mean, he's in the top 1% on just basically every category that StatCast keeps track of. Now, it's been a bit of a slip since then. 2020 wasn't good. 21 and 22 have been decent. 3.5 ERA, 3.60 ERA. This last year, you just sort of look at the StatCast, 86th percentile in hard hit rate. But the thing that jumps off at me, which we know the Dodgers like, is does he have something elite about him? 99th percentile in curveball spin. So that feels like the type of thing that, oh, interesting. I wonder if the Dodgers see something there that they can tap into, that they can connect with. Now, the name Seth Lugo does not inspire confidence. A relief pitcher converted into a starting pitcher does not inspire confidence. And yet, is Seth Lugo going to be signed to be the 6th starter, the 7th starter, a guy out of the bullpen like Tyler Anderson that maybe is piggybacking to start and then eventually cracks the rotation? Or is he going to be your number 5 starter? Because I think we'd both sit here and say, if the Dodgers were to go out and sign another starting pitcher that you feel good about as your number 5 and sign Seth Lugo, I think we'd both be fine with it. Is that a fair point, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I do believe like the bullpen, I think needs to sort of be addressed. And so I think he could be valuable in that, maybe filling in, taking the spots of a Tommy Kahnle and Chris Martin type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if he's, the pitcher you sign as your starting pitching depth, then I think like there's going to be some serious issues ahead.
Yeah, and I think we're getting at what is important. And I know being a fan is short for fanatic. And so to expect rationality from all of us when we are emotional about our own teams is not always a reasonable expectation. But all of these are reminding me as we talk through them, and I'm a verbal processor, so thank you to the folks joining us via YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, because I like to verbally process these things together, is that all of these moves, all of these stories require context. Dodgers not interested in Carlos Correa because of fear of fan pushback. Okay. Before we overreact to that headline, let's see what happens. If they sign Xander Bogaerts, then that's a non-story. If they sign Dansby Swanson, it's a non-story. If they sign Carlos Rodon and Brandon Nimo, it's a non-story. You know what I'm saying? Like, all context matters. The Dodgers interested in Seth Lugo. Okay, are they interested in him as a number 7 starter or number 5? Context matters. And so just being patient, slow to react to these things, I think can be helpful. Also remembering these are rumors. These are reports. Even the best guys like Ken Rosenthal, it doesn't necessarily mean that might be true right now, but maybe the price comes down on Correa. Maybe Correa ends up looking for a 2-year, $90 million deal. And all of a sudden, fan interest isn't all that important to Andrew Friedman anymore because they can make that work. I think it's just being patient here is important. Let's get to one more of these things.
Let me add something really quick too. And also, I mean, who knows when the next, there could be Arson Judge around the corner. And I don't know if you happen to catch John Heyman today tweet, Coke Hamels was still interested in pitching, and then he deleted it and obviously corrected it to Cole Hamels.
Well, yeah, and then we had Bob Nightingale this morning talking about Giancarlo Stanton, that he wasn't sure if Giancarlo Stanton wanted to come back to the Yankees, but he was surprised. I mean, it's like the Nightingale stuff is just so on brand. It's just like, Oh, you're reporting the Aaron Judge thing and you screwed up the name. Shocking. Like it's just unbelievable stuff from those guys. One of the other stories that came out today, Matt, which related to some of the stuff we've talked about, there are reports that talks have intensified between Xander Bogaerts and the Red Sox. Not good news if you're a Dodgers fan, in my estimation, because again, I think he's the best option out there at shortstop for the Dodgers. As I said, this doesn't mean anything. Like even as you read this, talks could have intensified. And what does that mean? Did they go from a 3 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10? Like, are we nearing the finish line? This report came out 6 or 7 hours ago as we're doing this live show on Wednesday night. And so who knows what this means? We've seen plenty of story. I mean, the talks had intensified between the Giants and Aaron Judge yesterday. And we saw how that one all played out. And so, again, context here is important, something to be patient for. So we'll see how that plays out. One other thing you wanted to mention, Matt, and then we can get to some questions here before we close this out. We got about 10 more minutes left on this show. There was a report the Dodgers expressed interest or are pursuing a left-handed bat. What do you know about that report? And kind of, you've said as you connect the dots in your head, that might lead to one particular person.
Yeah, so I mean, like I guess I allude to Brandon Nimo. I mean, maybe he's an option for it, but Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic put out an article. I don't know if it was late last night or this morning at some point, but alluding to just kind of summarizing Dodgers stuff from the winter meetings. And one note he had in there was that the Dodgers are looking for a left-handed bat as part of the offseason plan for them. And to me, when you couple that with what Dave Roberts said about them definitely wanting to add an outfielder and preferably somebody who plays center field, it kind of just screams Kevin Kiermaier. There's already history between him and Andrew Friedman. The Dodgers have been among the teams with reported interest in Kiermaier. And so putting all of that together, like I'm believing that could end up being their left-handed bat and center fielder, but we'll see.
Some people want to know, are we sure we're not talking about Joey Gallo here?
Yeah, so I think honestly, I think it was Fabian or somebody else said Gallo is not somebody that the Dodgers are looking at right now, at least right now, which was a little surprising. I thought maybe if his market doesn't materialize, and it still could hold true, there's several weeks left in the offseason, I could see him back at some point on a 1-year deal at kind of just a low team-friendly salary.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Kiermaier is he's basically Cody Bellinger, is kind of what he is. He's just going to cost you, I hope, a heck of a lot less than Cody Bellinger was going to. This is a guy who's really, really good defensively. And so, has some of the athleticism, 93rd percentile for sprint speed. But, the batting average, that kind of stuff, he hit 228 last season in 63 games, 281 on base, 369 slug. Basically 2021, he had an on-base OPS of 716. The 3 seasons before and the 1 season after were all under 690. And so it's a glove first center fielder. So that's why I joke when you say, hey, they want a left-handed bat. Like, I'm not sure Kiermaier qualifies as a left-handed bat only because he's not very good. So like, it's not like teams are going to change their approach because, Kiermaier, the lefty, is coming up, but I do think it makes some sense when you think about the value that the Dodgers have placed historically on defense. And again, the Cody Bellinger piece, we knew they valued his defense. We saw how much they valued his defense based on the leash that they gave him. And so again, if you can get Kiermaier for, I don't know, $12 million less than Cody Bellinger, $10 million less than Cody Bellinger's making, I don't know what the numbers are going to be. And the defense is, in the same ballpark, no pun intended, then I could see the Dodgers being interested in that. The only thing I would say is, are we sure James Outman can't give you the production that Kevin Kiermaier is going to give you? Are we sure that you couldn't get that out of just some of the guys that are already in the system? That would be my only question. But, again, it fits with the Dodgers' overall MO. Outman, by the way, is a left-handed bat as well. So, I don't know. I mean, any thoughts on, like, would you be excited about a Kevin Kiermaier signing?
No, not at all. I'm with you. I mean, I think at that point, just give James Outman the opportunity and see how that goes. And if it doesn't pan out, I mean, I feel like you could always find a your guy Billy McKinney type, outfielder
my guy, jeez Louise,
to that you could trade for during the season or claim off waivers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which reminds me, by the way, as we talk about Bellinger, throw questions if you've got him in the chat. We'll start to throw some comments up here and do some interaction. Our friend of the show, Greg Berkman, pointed out, Matt, that we didn't give you proper time to mourn the loss of Beltober, which you were insistent upon pushing, and which was voted to be worse than the janitor, for the record. And so I just wanted to give you a moment of remembrance here for hashtag Beltober.
Yeah, that's rough. We'll always have the Beltober memories, though. And once he's kind of officially signed with the Cubs, I think maybe we'll release a video montage of Beltober highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait. I mean, hey, pre-Beltober he was great. I feel like once we started calling it Beltober, I think that was when the issue was. Okay, let's get to some questions. Keenan here. How much input does Dave Roberts have on who the Dodgers pursue? Do you think he's in the room? Do you think he's a phone call away once they've narrowed some choices down? Where do you think Dave Roberts sits when these conversations are happening?
He definitely has a voice in the room, but I don't think he is a driving factor. I don't think, maybe if in passing he may mention to Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes, like, oh, I like so-and-so, like he's a free agent next year type thing, right? Like maybe something like that. And if they agree, like, then it's somebody they kind of keep tabs on. But Dave Roberts, I think he's a manager, and I think he knows his role. And I know fans don't think he's a very good manager, but that's a different topic for another time. I think so. I think they solicit his input, but he's not like saying, hey, you need to go get this guy, and this guy.
He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that really wants to involve himself in those types of conversations. Like, I think he's very much, he understands his role. He understands his lane. Andrew Friedman's going to do his job. Andrew Friedman has historically always set him up for success. And so I tend to agree with that one. Matt Moreno wants to know, Brandon Nimo, 5 years, $120 million, take it or leave it.
I mean, I'm probably leaving that.
The years, the money, what's the concern for you? 29-year-old Nimo.
I think the money a little bit.
Okay.
The 5 years, maybe you could talk me into it. I would prefer if it was like 4 years and a team option type thing. But at 120, I don't know if I'd do that.
Yeah. So again, elite defender, 90th percentile for outs above average, plays a premium position. Talking about a guy coming off a really good season, 800 OPS, 16 home runs. The StatCast numbers are very good. Everything is above average, basically 76th percentile strikeout rate, 78th percentile walk rate, 80th percentile whiff rate, 91st percentile chase rate, 84th percentile sprint speed. So he's got a lot of those tools. I think the question would be, is that the best place to spend that money? Yeah. Again, what's the context here? Like if they signed Brandon Nimo, I think he makes the team better. Like, he probably fits into the Dansby Swanson category for me. Like, if they gave that contract, I mean, this is maybe putting you on the spot here. Brandon Nimo or Dansby Swanson, who would you rather have?
Ooh,
like if money and years were
the
so
same, all things pretty much being equal, like financially.
I haven't done a ton of digging into Nimo. I know that Swanson, that's kind of the range that I think people think he's going to land in financially. So all things equal, I'll look up what MLB Trade Rumors has for Nimo.
Assuming all things being equal, honestly, I think I would go Nimo in that scenario. And no disrespect to Dansby Swanson, I've tried to politely he just doesn't really do it for me. I think he's he's a good player, but I don't know if he's necessarily worth that type of commitment. I don't know if he'd be enough of a difference maker.
Yeah, so Nimo on MLB Trade Rumors, he's the number 9 free agent. Swanson is number 6. Nimo's projected for 5 and 110. Swanson is like 7 for 154. So I think that's a smaller AAV, but more years for Swanson. It's interesting, right? Because I think you can make the case that shortstop is a bigger need for the Dodgers than center field is. The argument, and I guess, I think defensively, they've got guys that can play center field. I think there's a case to be made that defensively they may not have somebody that you feel great about at shortstop. I think Gavin Lux, you're not talking about, like, is Gavin Lux playing or not playing? Like, he could be your second baseman. So I'm not worried about losing Gavin Lux's bat somewhere in this equation if they were to sign a shortstop. The pros of Swanson are he just had an incredible season. Like, the ceiling that Swanson just displayed is far higher than the guys we're talking about. The problem is the 4 years prior to that and pretty much his entire career has been far closer to above average than it is to elite. The pros of Swanson, though, are he can play shortstop. He's going to give you solid to above average defense there, and he's going to stick at shortstop. He's one of the only guys, maybe outside him and Correa, the only two that you probably feel good about 5 years from now still being your shortstop. Nimo plays a premium defensive position. So I get all of those things. And Nimo, by the way, has had a far better track record historically. The 800 OPS he had this season was actually lower than in 92 games in 2021, lower than in 55 games in 2020, 782 the year before that, 887 the year before that. So Nimo's shown you consistency. I mean, we're talking about basically 5 out of the last 6 years he's had an OPS over 800. It hasn't dipped below 780. So you like to see that defensive position premium, plays premium defense. So I guess it's funny because I hadn't thought of that question until we were talking this out. But those two guys are very similar as far as what they bring to the table. So anyways, I haven't gotten a chance to look at the chat. I'm curious what people think. And if you already answered this, feel free to throw it in there again. But if you had to choose between Nimo and Dansby Swanson, and you were living somewhere in the 5 for 110 to 5 for 120 range, who would you prefer? We'll start throwing some some comments up on the screen, and just I'm curious. I'm curious where people land on this one, because like I said, I think it's interesting. Matt says Swanson is tragic, and that Nimo with lots of exclamation points. So there we go. Eddie Romero says he's going Brandon Nimo as well. Craig has got Swanson, so a little bit of a split there, but I don't know. Maybe that's another video. We get some folks on here to debate who would you rather spend that money on. Let's see if we could get one more question in here. Did you see anything?
Yeah, there was one.
Michael, I could throw this one up. I hear Jacob Amaya is solid defense. Why not him at shortstop? I think it's safe to say he's the best defensive shortstop that the Dodgers have on their 40-man roster. I think the issue with him is the bat. He had a great start to last season, but unfortunately the second half kind of tailed off. He finished the season with a weighted runs created plus a AAA of 94. So slugging percentage of 380, a 370 on base percentage, which is good. That's at AAA. He crushed the ball at AA, 870 OPS there. So, if that's the numbers you're putting up offensively at AAA, it's concerning about how that's going to translate. So is he a guy that probably ends up on a bench? I think he has a major league career because the glove will stick at shortstop. He could be a defensive replacement. He could be we're talking about a Kevin Kiermaier type in center field. I mean, Jacob Amaya could be, a bootleg version of that at shortstop for a team that wants really good defense and is willing to sacrifice the bat. And so that's the issue on Amaya.
While you're looking, I see Craig is asking who's Swanson's agent. I'm fairly certain he's at Excel because I remember the kind of connection with him and Freddie Freeman being that they're both close friends and they have the same agency. And that was, of course, until Freeman left Excel after that whole fiasco.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's end with this one. Jason Austin, Ross Stripling reunion. He would bring us back to 2 November 23rd birthdays with Justin Turner potentially gone. So we would maintain the status quo there, which is nice. Him and Gavin Lux, coming off a really good year. So probably expecting to get paid. Do you think there's a fit with the Dodgers?
I think so. I think for the right terms that could work. And again, I think though I will say I would rather them sign Stripling than Lugo if they're looking in terms of starting rotation. And if Stripling is your fifth starter going into the season, I feel a little bit better with him than I do Pepio. I think between the two of them, you could kind of fill that spot. But yeah, I don't think it's the worst idea.
Yeah, I mean he's good. The only thing, it feels like when the Dodgers are targeting pitchers in the waters that they're targeting, they're looking for guys that have upside that they feel like they can tap into. And I just don't think, I think Stripling has probably already hit the ceiling. And so the Dodgers tend to not want to pay for the ceiling. They want to pay for the guy, the Tyler Anderson, the Andrew Heaney types, where we think we can unlock another level. I don't think Stripling has that kind of stuff. It's not like there's a couple extra miles an hour or an arm angle or a breaking ball. It feels like Ross Stripling is a very good pitcher, and that's where he'll stay. So that would kind of be my only sort of concern about, whether or not they would pursue somebody like Ross Stripling. So good player, Jason says I would go 3 years, $34 million. Yeah, I mean, seems reasonable. If I'm the Dodgers, I'm not sure I want to be on the hook for. I'd be fine with that at 1 year. If you said it's 1 year, $13 million, okay, I'm interested now. But the second and third year, I think that's when you got to make sure you've got some space for some of the young guys coming up. Tony asks, are there no decent trades to be done? I bet there are. We don't know about them. Trades are the hardest ones to predict because we just don't know who's actually available and who's not, what prospects they like versus what prospects the Dodgers value. I think it's a safe bet, Matt, that if there was an over-under on 0.5 significant trades involving somebody that is going to start for the Dodgers next season, I would feel really good about taking the over. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I would maybe even set that over at like 1.5.
There you go. Matt just going up a level. I'll mention this one. Michael asks about Johnny Cueto as well. Somebody asked, could we trade for him? He's a free agent. So, I mean, that's the type of guy that I've always liked. Johnny Cueto, he does some weird stuff. He's funky. Who knows? Like, if he gets desperate and the Dodgers want somebody like that, throw him in the bullpen, see if you can maximize some stuff out there and also have him as a long relief piggyback type guy. I would be intrigued with Johnny Cueto if the number is right. Okay, we just keep asking questions. Justin Turner, is he done with the Dodgers? Matt, you say?
No, I don't think so.
Matt's got him in his offseason plan. So coming back to the Dodgers is Matt's guess. So,
and to answer Craig's question, yes, he does pitch. I mean, let's not his latest bobblehead was of him pitching.
Yeah. There you go. What's not to like there? Well, hey, folks, we appreciate you joining us. Again, we weren't planning on doing some of these live shows, but there's been enough news the last few days, and so we might keep doing them. We might not keep doing them. Who knows? Obviously, tomorrow we got the big Raiders versus Rams game, so we got to, Matt and I got to stay dialed into that one. Matt, you feeling good about your Rams tomorrow night?
Sure. I don't know when they became my Rams, but sure, I'll take it.
I thought are you not a Rams guy?
I'm not an NFL guy.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, I'm a Raiders guy. So go Raiders. Daniel, I know Daniel's a Rams guy. For some reason, I thought you were a Rams guy. So we'll talk smack to Daniel. Raiders big tomorrow. Raiders big. We appreciate everybody joining us. As always, make sure you subscribe to DodgerHeads, Dodger Blue 1958 on social media, and here on YouTube, because sometimes Matt and I are texting and say, hey, there's a lot of stuff that happened. Let's hop on a live. So we appreciate the folks. It's nice to see over 200 folks hopping in here by the end of the show. We'll have more content tomorrow, every single day. DodgerBlue.com. Matt and the team of writers over there do a great job, of course, as well. So thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your night. And as always, go Dodgers.